Chicago region is actually one of the most biodiverse areas in the US and North America. We have a tremendous amount of plants and animals that rely on the various ecosystems here in our region. We're really blessed by having all kinds of different habitat types that allow for that high degree of diversity. So for example, we have over 4,000 different plant species that are found here in Chicagoland, more than 300 species of birds, dozens of amphibians and reptiles, and thousands of insects. The list could go on and on. It's truly mind-boggling the amount of life that lives among us, even in areas that are highly densely urban. We have numerous different types of aquatic ecosystems. Certainly the most obvious ones are any local rivers or creeks, maybe your local pond. Certainly the Great Lakes are a big example, but then even ones that maybe people don't think of as much, like a bog, or special kinds like fens or swamps or marshes. Those are all really important aquatic ecosystems that are different and unique in their own way, but still just as important for our larger Chicagoland habitat. So in the Great Lakes as a whole, 22 million pounds of trash make their way, specifically plastic debris, make their way into the Great Lakes every year. About half of that ends up here in Lake Michigan, and that's due to, the large cities like Chicago or Milwaukee or a number of others that are all along the shores of Lake Michigan. There's a couple of different ways in which Shedd is trying to address plastic pollution in the Great Lakes. They're looking at ways to address how we use plastics and styrofoam in our industries and how we can reduce them. Additionally, we have opportunities for volunteers to join us out on our local waterways, beaches, and shorelines to help collect some of the debris that we see piling up. In a single year, we can have a couple hundred volunteers pick up thousands of pounds of trash just on Chicago beaches, much less volunteers that are out there all throughout the Great Lakes collecting up trash and debris. The Conservation Department and team here at Shedd works at numerous aquatic habitats throughout the Chicago area, all with kind of their own different focus or emphasis. So one of the areas that we work in is local forest preserves focused on ephemeral wetlands to conserve local amphibian species. We actually have about 13 different species of amphibians, frogs, toads, salamanders, that call the Chicago area home. And they're all highly threatened by various forms of habitat destruction and degradation and water pollution. So what we do is we go out with volunteers and just with some simple hand tools, we remove invasive species brought over from other parts of the world that are harming these ecosystems, remove them, and try to restore these waterways and ponds for these sensitive amphibian species. Additionally, at beach habitats all along the lakefront here in Chicago and even just beyond Chicago, we're out collecting debris and trash to remove from certainly the water column and help wildlife and ourselves, but we're also restoring dune ecosystems at many of these sites, which are important for reducing erosion, create important habitat for lots of wildlife species, and a number of great benefits. One of the biggest ways that we can help our local wildlife is ensuring that they have space to live and thrive. And that can take a lot of different forms. Certainly that can involve going out to your local forest preserve or your local park and helping restore and protect those habitats. But that can also take the form of, say, planting a garden in your home. Even a small, tiny little backyard can potentially be a really important space for something like a butterfly or a bird. And so by planting native plants or trees along your streetway, you're creating that habitat for these creatures to just live in our communities alongside us. Additionally, certainly doing best practices in terms of recycling, making sure we're disposing of our trash properly, and then also calling on your representatives to let them know that these are things that matter. They need to know from and hear from you that I care about the wildlife and community. I care about plastic pollution in my community. And the more that we speak up, the more that they can then take that and take meaningful action.